Patrick Waugh implements changes after the Islanders lost to Tampa Bay, but is this the cure for what ails this team? We've got that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
You're Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all season long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Another frustrating loss for the New York Islanders. They fall to the Tampa Bay Lightning at UBS Arena Saturday afternoon. And unfortunately, too many of the same problems seemingly hitting this team. Let's start with this. They never, and I unfortunately do mean never, seem to play well during matinees. It just seems to be a struggle. You would think that would not be the case with a veteran team, but the Islanders, the puck drops at 2 o'clock or 2:08 or whatever, official time it is in the afternoon. And it just seems like the Islanders are not ready to play. And, you give up that first goal 4 minutes and 12 seconds in. It's all Lightning early. I mean, the Islanders just looked like they weren't there, weren't ready, could not match the speed, the intensity, the determination of the Tampa Bay Lightning, a team that has been up and down really all season. And then, you give up the goal, and it looked like the Islanders had tied the game. And yet, after the review, Anders Lee, offside, doesn't work. The goal is reversed. And then, bam, Nikita Kucherov makes it 2-0. Officially, it was a goal in two goals in a minute and 22 seconds. So just like Thursday against the Blues, you come out, you give up 2 goals or multiple goals in a short amount of time, and then you spend the rest of the game playing catch up. They end up giving up a power play goal in the second period. You're down 3-0, and then you get goals from Anders Lee and Brock Nelson late in the third to pull within 1. Islanders pull their goalie, empty net goal, game over. But again, you can't come out flat in a big game against a team that you're supposed to be fighting for a playoff berth with. You're at home. You're facing this team. It's really a 4-point game if you look at it. And the Islanders just weren't ready to go at the opening faceoff. And to me, more than anything, that is a huge problem. Now, Scott Mayfield out of the lineup, lower body injury, so he did not play. You had Casey Cizikas rejoining the lineup, so Kyle McLean was a scratch. And, kind of surprised again that Aho gets the nod over Samuel Bolduc when Mayfield is out of the lineup. I still would rather go with Bolduc for his size and what he can give you in your own zone. And, I think the fact that Sebastian Aho only played 12 and a half minutes in this game And then, you saw Patrick Waugh losing patience with some guys. Cal Clutterbuck, 6.5 minutes of ice time, did not play late. Matt Martin, 4.5 minutes of ice time, and yet he took 2 penalties. He didn't play much in the second and third period. So overall, again, Waugh shortening the bench, trying to figure out a combination that maybe might work, and yet, too little, too late on the comeback trail for the Islanders. And you just need the one thing that as a fan and as somebody who is covering this team and watching every game, you need consistency from your players, and this team just isn't getting it. You need that effort. Look, there are going to be times over the course of a game and over the course of a season where you're not playing your best, and the other team may very well dominate a minute, 2 minutes, whatever it is at a time. But it happens far too frequently to this team, and you got to at least give the effort for 60 minutes. And we don't always see that. The first, period of this game, maybe even 2 periods of this game, the Islanders just didn't seem ready to go, and that is not the answer. And again, Brock Nelson, Kyle Palmieri, Adam Pelech, all -2 in this game. That line giving up too many scoring chances, and it doesn't work. And you got to remember, you basically only had 2 even strength goals, a power play goal allowed, and then an empty net goal allowed. And Ilya Sorokin only faced 20 shots, but 3 of them went in. And then, of course, the empty netter. And Patrick Waugh, we're starting to hear some similar things maybe from Waugh that we were hearing from Lane Lambert after a while. Well, I don't think we played a bad game. We've got to clean up those little minute or two where we give up quick goals. We've got to play smarter. But I think we're making progress, and I like, the way we're playing, even though it's not showing up on the scoreboard. Yeah, I think there's 2 ways to look at this. The number one way to look at it is, overall, giving up only 20 shots on goal, that is definitely progress. The fact that you had 34 shots on goal compared to 20 for the other team, progress. There are things that this team is doing better. But if you're wondering about not the long term, but the short term, what does it mean for the playoffs? I almost feel like I should have to do the Jim Mora thing. Playoffs? Well, who's talking about playoffs? This team needs to play better. And, excuse me, it may be too late for the Islanders to make the playoffs this year. They may be getting better under Patrick Waugh. I like some of the things I'm seeing under Patrick Waugh. But right now, the Islanders are in 6th place in the Metropolitan Division. They are 7 points behind the Flyers for 3rd place in the division. Islanders do have a game in hand. Excuse me. Pittsburgh is only 2 points behind the Islanders, and they have 3 games in hand on the Islanders. Realistically, the Islanders have less than a 20% chance, according to computer models, of making the playoffs this year. And the way they're playing, it just, they would need to go on like a 7-2-1 kind of a streak, and then maybe have another one after that. It just doesn't look like that is in the making right now. So, again, with the trade deadline coming, and we'll talk more about this over the course of the week, but does it make sense, as Lou Lamoriello said, we're going to go try to win and go all in and all of that? If we can help the team, this team may not be able to help get it done for this year, but that doesn't mean you can't sort of take a step back, make some tweaks to the lineup, and come back with make some changes at the trade deadline and during the offseason, and come back with a better lineup next year. But there's got to be changes, because you can't have that lack of effort. You cannot have a situation where the team just isn't playing 60 minutes of hockey, and that's got to change. All right, we have got more to get to on today's show. Patrick Waugh making some changes in the lineup, shuffling the line combinations again Sunday in practice. We'll break down those lines and talk about what they mean. Plus, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, we have a player who really didn't spend a lot of time with the Islanders, was one full season and parts of a couple of others. But boy, did he come up with a big playoff goal in 2016. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got that and a lot more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Camino Consulting. You've heard of our online families and couples course and take advantage of the Locked On 25% discount running to the end of the month. But what about the live seminars? In both sport and business, the challenge in differentiating candidates and recruits is an endless battle. Everyone can demonstrate their measurables and qualifications, but we all know it's the intangibles that matter when those things are similar. So contact Camino Consulting for their team and management seminars to get a peek behind the curtain and watch your next recruiting class or hiring group become one of the most effective that you've ever seen. Because you identified the right candidates and then you learned how to communicate and motivate them in accord with their own preferences. But you aren't in business management or working with a team, well, we pay referrals. Make some money making your workplace and favorite teams better. Every group works together better at the end of the year than in week one. So contact Camino Consulting at caminoconsulting.ca and get on the fast track to understanding. Again, that's caminoconsulting.ca. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So the Islanders returned to practice Sunday after the loss to the Lightning on Saturday. And guess what? Patrick Waugh, not standing still. And I give him credit for that, changing around the line combinations. And he had a lot to say about it as well at practice. Here are the line combinations that he put out. Top line of Horvat, Nelson, and Barzal. So Brock Nelson moving from second line center to top line left wing. Then you go to J.G. Pageau, Anders Lee, and Kyle Palmieri on the second line. The third line of Cizikas, Engvall, and Holmstrom. And then McLean, Martin, and Clutterbuck as the fourth line. And I can't say I blame Patrick Waugh for trying. He's got to do something because this team doesn't have scoring depth. They're not consistently producing. They just are not giving us, as we mentioned, that 60-minute effort. The good news is you got a very dangerous first line. Horvat, Nelson, and Barzal, in my mind, are the only three legitimate top six forwards the Islanders have on this team right now. However, you also have 48% of the goals scored all year on that line. So obviously, if opposing teams can shut down that top line, they've got a good chance of winning this game. Pageau moving up to the second line. Yeah, I guess by process of elimination, it makes sense. Your first line now is all three natural centers playing together. Pageau, Lee, and Palmieri, maybe that helps get J.G. Pageau going a little offensively. Pageau and Palmieri a little bit quicker than average. Lee, obviously not. Engvall, Cizikas, and Holmstrom does not seem to me like a third line that would provide very much offense. And obviously McLean, Martin, and Clutterbuck not going to provide a lot of offense either. But let's see whether or not there is some chemistry there. I like the idea of McLean sort of getting things going. So, in the third period against Tampa Bay, you did have that line of Nelson, Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal. And Wah said of it, they bring speed. I really like the energy they brought in that third period, so it's very tempting to continue the experience. A center can play wing, a winger cannot play center, so it is an advantage to have center depth. So we'll see what happens. You know, that top line, they do play together on the power play. And Bo Horvat basically said after practice on Sunday, Brock's a really good player. And I think we're just trying to get a spark here offensively. Obviously, he brings that element to our line. So if we get the chance to play together tomorrow, I'm really looking forward to it. Now, you may notice that who's not in this lineup? Oliver Wahlstrom, back as an extra forward at practice. Can't say that that's a shock either, but look, let's face it, Wahlstrom just has not been able to produce much, and you get that old chicken and egg situation with Wally, where on the one hand, he's not playing a lot, so he's not producing a lot, so he's not playing a lot, and it's hard, you know, when you don't give him a lot of chances and he ends up sitting, it's hard to say he got a fair shot. But at the same time, Patrick Waugh, over the last 6 games or so, has really said, Wally, you're in the lineup. And Wahlstrom just hasn't been able to put it all together and produce. So we have to see what's going to happen. Now, defensively, some changes as well. Romanov and Polak were a pair. Pelech and Dobson were a pair. Mayfield will not go on this 2-game road trip to Dallas and Detroit. So the Islanders announcing that Scotty Mayfield will be out for at least the next 2 games. And then the question is Robert Bortuzzo ready? Do you end up placing Mayfield on IR and activating Bortuzzi? Do you stick with Sebastian Aho in the lineup if Mayfield is not ready to go? Do you turn to Samuel Bolduc? Do you try to give them both a chance and then ride the hot hand? There are a lot of options out there on defense, and it's just a question of what the Islanders are going to do. But again, for Waugh, he wanted to have his younger blue liners matched up with veterans. So it's Romanov and Polak, Pelech and Dauber as the top 2 pairs. And hopefully, you know, no Mayfield, at least for the next couple of games, and we'll see how they handle that situation going forward. But look for some lineup changes. And again, Oliver Wahlstrom not in the lineup, and that is, needless to say, going to be frustrating for him. Wah basically saying, I know the wins are absent at this moment, but I believe that every day we take a step forward and it's a step closer to success. I think they feel it. I feel like defensively we're playing better, as I said in the last segment. I think they feel like we're cutting down on turnovers. I think they feel like we're better in our breakouts. Offensively, we have some puck possession. So, you know, it may be a matter of time until the Islanders are able to make a difference and start actually showing the result of these games in the standings, but they're not there yet, and they may not be able to make those corrections and improvements on the scoreboard and in the standings in time to make the playoffs this year. So we have to keep an eye, obviously, on that. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We will preview tonight's game in Dallas against the Dallas Stars. Again, that is an 8 o'clock Eastern time start. You can hear every minute of this game with the Islanders hometown broadcast on the SiriusXM, on the SXM app. Just do a search for Islanders, and we'll also have our Islanders birthday of the day. So all that and a lot more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. We're past the halfway mark of the season, Islander fans, but regardless of where we are in the standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like McDavid, Crosby, or McKinnon will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Islander fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So it's Islanders and the Dallas Stars tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern time in Dallas. And remember, you can catch every minute of that game. The Islanders' hometown radio broadcast on SiriusXM. Just go to the SXM app and do a search for Islanders. Stars, they have struggled a little as of late, but they are still in first place in the Central Division. Just barely ahead of Winnipeg and Colorado in a very exciting 3-way race for first place. And offensively, they are third in the league in goals scored. They get it done with balance. 7 different players on this team have between 18 and 23 goals. The Islanders, by comparison, don't have anywhere near that. So definitely a difference in the scoring depth and talent here for this Dallas Stars team. Right now, Roope Hintz has 23 goals to lead the team. Jason Robertson, 57 points. Matt Duchene right behind him with 55. Joe Pavelski not far off. Defensively, they're more middle of the road, 15th in goals against. Jake Ottinger is the starting goalie, backed up by Scott Wedgwood. And in that last game that they played on Saturday, it was Ottinger in between the pipes. So not clear whether we get Ottinger again or Wedgwood, but those are the goalies. Special teams, the power play, middle of the pack, 14th in the league, a 22.4% success rate. The penalty kill is 8th. They are at 82.4% success at killing those off. The line combinations, Roope Hintz, Jason Robertson, and Joe Pavelski, a very dangerous top line. Matt Duchene, Mason Marchment, and Ty Dellandrea. That's the second line. From left to right on the third line, Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnston, and Logan Stankoven. And then Sam Steele is the fourth line pivot with Radek Faksa and Craig Smith on either side of him. On defense, Thomas Harley and Miro Heiskanen are the top pair. Asa Lindell and Derek Pouliot, the second unit. And then Ryan Suter and Joel Hanley are the third pairing. The goaltenders, Jake Ottinger and Scott Wedgwood, as we mentioned. The injuries, Yanni Hakanpaa out. He's day-to-day. Tyler Seguin now out of the lineup. Niels Lundqvist day-to-day. And Evgeny Dodonov is out. So injuries, especially on the blue line, affecting the Stars. To win this game, Islanders have to stay out of the box, obviously. But more than that, they've got to give the 60-minute effort, because this is a team that can wear you down. And, you can't just key on one line. There is no one line on the Dallas Stars that has 48% of the team's goals scored on those 3 players. There are 3 really good lines that can score, 2 that are, I would say, even better than good. And that's going to be the big challenge for the Islanders. Can these new line combinations slow down the Jason Robertsons and Roope Hintzes and Matt Duchene's of this team? And obviously, you got to have a better goaltending performance as well, and be smart in your own zone. And, if the Islanders are indeed playing better, as Patrick Waugh said, this would be a great time to show it and to essentially, slowed down what is a very good Dallas Stars attack. And then, with the blue line injuries that we're seeing from the Stars, the Islanders have to take advantage of that and, put some pressure on the forecheck and cause some turnovers because, again, on defense, Dallas missing a number of players. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day. And Sunday was the 31st birthday of former Islanders forward Alan Quine, the Belleville, Ontario native, drafted twice after not signing with Detroit in 2011. 2 years later, back in the draft, 6th-round pick of the Islanders in 2013, made his Islanders debut in 2015-2016. Only played 2 regular season games that year after spending most of the year with Bridgeport, but then played in 10 playoff games for the Islanders and had a goal and 5 points. 2016-2017 was his full season with the Islanders, 61 games, 5 goals, 18 points. Then split the following year between Bridgeport and the big team. Briefly had 2 stints with the Calgary Flames and is still active right now, playing in Sweden. He's played a lot more in the AHL. So going back, easy to tell Alan Quine's most memorable moment with the Islanders. How about the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs, April 22nd, 2016, Game 5 in Florida, Islanders and the Panthers. Tomas Greiss, the Islanders goalie, Roberto Luongo, the goalie for Florida. Series tied at 2-2, game tied at 1-1. And in double overtime at the 16-minute mark, Alan Quine scores a power play goal with Derek McKenzie in the box for slashing. Marek Zidlicki and Thomas Hickey with the assist. Alan Quine, a memorable game winner, puts the Islanders up 3-2 in the series, and they close it out with a double overtime win 2 nights later back in Brooklyn when John Tavares scored the goal in double overtime to give the Islanders their first series win in 23 years. But obviously, none of that happens without the strong play of Alan Quine and his big double overtime goal on the road in Game 5. So happy birthday to Alan Quine. He is 31. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we'll have our key takeaways from the game against the Dallas Stars. So make sure you join us for that. And we'll also have the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.